All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Conversations with Coach Kevin. I'm your host, Kevin Thornton. And today I have a great woman who's doing amazing things in the world of mental health. I've known this young lady since I probably was 21, and she is now,
26.
but now she has gone on to do amazing, extraordinary things. And I want to showcase the world what she's doing in the world of mental health. So I'd like to introduce to you guys Miss Darnita Samuels. How you doing, ma'am?
Hey, I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
I am doing amazing. So first, let me to give you the flowers that you deserve. I am extremely proud of what you are becoming, what you're doing.
Thank
I
you.
knew when I saw you, one time I saw you last, I know you were working at the Blues in North Carolina. So I
Hmm.
thought, but then next thing I know, I got on LinkedIn, and now next thing you know, you are this mental health therapist, got your own practice, all type of good stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And how did you become so obedient to the purpose that he put on you?
Oh, so you're gonna get me like right up front. Okay, got you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Classic Kevin. All right. So thank you so much. So honestly, I had no clue when that I was going to be a therapist. You know, when we used to work together, I was still trying to figure myself out. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I didn't know who I was really, right? But I was
Right.
trying to carve something out.
Mhm.
Well, when you ask like, how did I become obedient? Yeah, I really wasn't. This was like one of those kicking and screaming type things. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean by that. So people used to go come up to me at Meyer grocery store, right? And they was tell me
Mhm.
their whole business, and I'd be looking at them like, "Ooh, you probably need to go talk to somebody." And several
Mhm.
people would say, "Well, aren't you the person I should talk to?" And I was like, "No," because at the time I was working in customer service, and you know the
Mhm.
phones. Once I was done with the phones, I was done talking to people.
Right.
So I went through that process and it happened several times. And then I started thinking, like, okay, well, maybe I should go to school for this because if so many people are doing this to me, then maybe this is a reason.
Mhm.
So I was already at Central Michigan, had graduated with my first master's. So I was thinking,
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I'll go back, right? But every
Mhm.
time I was trying to go back, they had just started a new cohort. And they had a program where once you start together, you finish together. You don't just jump in and switch.
Mhm.
But it was all divine because I ended up relocating to North Carolina. In the relocation process, that's where God had to humble me, humiliate me, and sit me all the way down because I had such an experience there. I was in a relationship, we were supposed to be getting married and everything else. And then once we got there, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mhm.
And that thing like threatened to blow me to smithereens, right? But
Mhm.
that's when I started my real therapy journey because my primary care physician at the time, she was a woman who saw me as well. We would laugh, crack jokes together, and everything else. I really trusted her. Her name is Dr. Robin Sanders, and if she's still in Greensboro, North Carolina, y'all better go see her because she is the best thing ever. But she saw me, and one day she came in. She was like, mm-mm. Her and her whole staff were like, "You don't even look right." And I was just like looking at them like, "Oh, okay," because I really wasn't. But nobody else saw me. She pulled me into the office and she said, Darnita, I'm sending you my therapist. That was like a wake up call because I was like, you go see a therapist? And she said, yes, I can't manage life and everything else I got going on by myself. I need help. And I was like, okay, great. She sent me to her therapist. And then as I was talking to her and she became my therapist, then it became apparent like I'm going through all this hell in my life for a reason. And then that's when I went back to school, got into Pfeiffer University, started the program and everything else. And then it just kind of came from there. Once I graduated, I started my practice, honestly, because, well, I'll say it like this, but I know really what it was. At the time, my thought was, I can't take a $20,000, $30,000 pay cut.
Mhm.
Switching careers from corporate America, being in a management position, and then going to a entry level clinician role right? Where you only have like your clinical training and different things like that, which is a year and a half mostly. They will lowball you, right? And so then they were like, "Oh, we'll give you this job; it'll be great and everything else. And here's your salary." And I'm like, "This is $30,000 difference from what I'm taking home." No. So what I did was started my practice, and then it took off from there. When I started my practice, I was like, "Okay, God, I'm doing this, and you're gonna have to build it out." And that's exactly what He did. So May 1st of 2016, I opened up my practice. It was first under my name. It got switched to Agape Healing and Wellness Center because I went from a solo practitioner to a group practice in 21. And that was a journey within itself right there. So now I have two locations, one in North Carolina and one in Houston.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how? So when you went from solo to a group,
Mhm.
how did that work?
Ooh, so that was something, right? Because you have to figure out how you're going to structure your business. Are you going to have employees? Are you going to have contractors? With each one, there's a different tax situation, right? And do you actually want employees or do you just want contractors? Some people are saying, "Hey, I want it for this and I want it for that." I chose contractor roles simply because for the way my life is currently set up, it was easier. And then I'd already had one person who was my admin. She went to the same school I went to, which was Pfeiffer University. Once she graduated, she was just like, "I really want to come work with your practice." Now, mind you, give you a backstory. We had met a few years before that at the Black Mental Health Symposium when it was in Charlotte. And I never remembered her, but she remembered me. And she was like, "Darnita, I've always wanted to work in your practice." And I was like, "When did we meet?" Because I don't remember you. But I know it was so funny because I was just like, "This is so crazy." However, she became my admin, did a wonderful job. Then she became a clinician, a provisionally licensed clinician once she graduated and passed her licensure exam for marriage and family therapy. And so she's been with me ever since. So she's been with me since 21 as well. So I've got her, and I have a social worker who's working for her, working towards her licensed clinical social worker full designation. So she's a provisionally licensed social worker as well. And then I have an intern. In my Houston office, I have one person I'm hoping to bring on this week, actually. And I'm looking forward to getting her up and running and to building her out. So it's just been a process, filing the paperwork, getting the right designations, following the different state organizations and regulations, and paying all the fees because, like here in Texas, for instance, because my headquarters is technically in North Carolina, I'm considered a foreign entity here. And they have foreign entity fees, and then they also have franchise fees. Now, I don't make enough money for the franchise fees yet, so I'm just like, okay, at least I don't have to pay those taxes. But the foreign entity fee I had to pay, and then also every year there's a renewable form that I have to do that says, I'm not making as much as the franchise tax amount is. So, having to stay on top of all those state regulations and everything else, and the state licenses.
So, would you have one in North Carolina and Texas?
Mhm.
Where are you based out of now? Are you still based out of North Carolina or are you based out of Texas?
I am in Houston.
Shut up.
Yes, I'm in Houston. Yeah. I moved here in 22, July 3rd of 22. I moved here. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll, we'll have a sidebar after that, outside of this. I don't know why I thought you were still in North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
Had an off. That's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, my next question for you is let's talk about as a life coach, I coach men and women.
Mhm.
Like I told you before, I've been focusing a lot on men because that's my assignment that he has placed on me. Because I feel like our black men struggle a
Mhm.
lot with their emotions and what they got going on in their lives, and they feel like they have no one to talk to.
Mhm.
And one of the key things that I've noticed that the men that I coach, but also some of the women I've coached, is They all suffer from abandonment issues.
Yeah.
And can you please tell the audience why and how abandonment affects men and women in such a major way?
That's a great question. And it goes into many folds of one person's life, male and female. So we're talking about how people attach. When you have abandonment, and I'll put it together because they kind of go together with abandonment and
Mhm,
rejection issues,
mhm,
or traumas from abandonment and rejection. It
mhm,
really defines who you are as a person almost. The
mhm,
way you show up, the way you attach or don't attach in relationships, also how you formulate other type of relationships. So sometimes it's going into peer relationships, spiritual relationships, how you actively serve and identify God as. Also, how you see yourself as, whatever label or title, brother, son, uncle, nephew, niece, mother, father, all of those things come into how it plays. And
mhm,
then it also talks about how you, and I don't use the term self care because it gets a little cliche ish, but it
mhm.
also comes into how you perform self love duties, right?
Right.
So when I say self love duties, is this: if you're the person you're always bending over backwards for everybody else, and you're constantly like on guard for everybody else, as if you're a soldier at war, and you're walking around like, not on my watch, nobody will ever get hurt, I'm gonna make sure everybody got everything that they need, and I'm going to always be available, different things like that, that can mirror a lot of things. That's hypervigilance sometimes, that's also people pleasing sometimes, and then it's just what we say is, I'm so loyal to a fault, right?
Mhm,
But here's where the self love is not there, because nowhere in there do you give yourself any amount of that same care and concern. So
mhm,
when I'm working with people on an inner child wound that's dealing with abandonment and rejection, because according to Carol and Miss, there are six forms of inner children wounds, and one of them is the abandoned and the orphaned child. Okay.
mhm,
And so when you're doing that, right, you gotta put yourself in there. When I work with my clients, I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, well, who wiped you out? When did you believe the story? And how are you now narrating it to be suitable for you, even though you're self-harm, right?
mhm.
So then as we figure it out, we poke it through, we pick it apart, we get all the ages that come up, because when I'm working with an inner child wound, there's somebody could be 3 years old, somebody could be 6 years old, somebody could have a span from 7 to 14. And we got to go through that whole span and talk to every child to try to figure out what happened, who did it, and then reparenting. So, a big part of it is when I'm trying to get somebody to actually love themselves, because if I say,
Mhm.
oh, you got to put yourself into the equation, people be like, yeah, and it'll be on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But if I say, and especially if a person has children or nieces and nephews, if I say to them, you've got to become your own son or your own daughter, because I can guarantee you, from the conversations that we've had, there's no way you would allow somebody to treat your child the way you treat yourself. That's when the
Wow.
light comes on, right? That's when the light comes on.
That's good.
You wouldn't. I mean, think about it. You think about it. There's a kid that you love in your whole life, right? If somebody approached them wrong, or if it's just like you in a, you're out about and everything else socializing, what do? You always have your eyes on that child, right? And
Mhm.
you're watching, like, who's approaching, who's coming around, do we know these people, do they look threatening or anything like that, right? Because you are constantly looking out for any points of danger for that child, because you care so deeply and you want to protect that child at all costs, right?
Mhm.
But we don't do that for ourselves until we have to think of ourselves as the child.
That's good. That's really good.
Mhm.
So one of the things I also learned too, dealing with them, is that um, a lot of them suffer from self-esteem issues.
Mhm.
Um, I realized that the men who choose me as their life coach choose me because they see a father figure, and they feel like without, I guess, without knowing it, and because they are seeking love from a male figure that they never received before.
Mhm.
And how important is that to that male and or female?
So I think it's hugely important because in general it leads back to the first person who was the offender,
Mhm,
meaning the first person who abandoned and or rejected that person. They're
mhm,
constantly looking for their validation, their acceptance, their love. And a lot of times they don't think so, right? And I'm glad you specifically point out men because I have been over the last year, I've had so many conversations with men about this issue. And not necessarily under the guise of abandonment and rejection, right? Because
mhm,
you got to be in a specific space sometimes for men to actually bring up that word and say how they felt about it, right?
mhm. Yeah.
But I have talked about community with men, right? Because
Mhm,
trying to poke around, well, who's your safe space? Because
mhm.
let's be clear, women search out community immediately.
Yeah.
It can be healthy or unhealthy, but we're gonna search out and find a community somewhere we can fit in and kind of just be around, dump it, have something, someone,
Mhm.
whether they're good or or not. We're not getting the quality of the relationship, but we're gonna find community, right?
Right.
Men are so insular, and they'll be like, "Oh no,
Mhm,
I'm good, I'm good, I'm good," and it's just
mhm,
like, no, you're not. Good is that
mhm,
that passing in the hallway, like, "Oh hey, how you doing?" You don't even give eye contact, right? Because
mhm,
everybody is unseen.
mhm,
So when we're talking about men and their community, it's so many layers to it because we have societal layers that talk about men. There's a documentary that I saw several years ago, and it's called "The Three Worst Words to Tell a Man." Suck it up, be a man. And
mhm,
what it talks about is how boys at birth are socialized to deny all of their emotions. So whatever
mhm.
comes that hurts them and everything else, even if they fall and skin their knee, oh, shake it off. You all right? You don't cry. Boys don't cry. Men don't cry, right? And then
Mhm.
it goes even into further where when someone or people, period, like a whole family sometimes feels as if they're rejecting them. Oh, you suck it up. You'll be all right. Just, and then when we lose someone that we absolutely love, whether it's to a death, ending of a relationship, and everything else, there is a pep talk and coaching that occurs sometimes from
Mhm.
other men that says, you got to be strong. So don't you sit over there and cry. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
You got to keep it together for them. So which is
Mhm.
further erasure, right? So the
Right.
message becomes, I don't matter. I'm not significant. I have
Mhm,
got to show up in only a few ways.
mhm,
And if I have emotions, then there's something wrong with me. Right. So then, as we come in contact and community with each other, and we're trying to assimilate and associate and everything else, and at the same time, protect ourselves. So now we got all these walls up
mhm.
that sometimes we struggle in formulating that relationship to even just say, man, I ain't got it today. Because now I got to save face. I can't admit flaws.
Yeah.
God forbid I fail. What? Who are they
Mhm,
going to think I am? Because now I've assumed this role and title around the people that I associate with, right? And then all this while, all I'm trying to do is tuck it back in, tuck it back in, tuck it back in.
mhm,
And then going back to the abandonment and rejection issue, I'm still trying to prove to that person or these people that I'm good enough, I'm lovable, I'm acceptable,
mhm.
and I'm good.
Very good. And I'm gonna say this, and everything you said is spot on. And in my journey, I had to work with all that because I was the typical male, you know, nonchalant, nothing bothered me,
Mhm,
didn't show no emotions. That was y'all running joke at me at work because I was like whatever to everything, nothing
mhm,
really nothing really bothered me. So once I realized this is the calling that he's put on me to do, before I could even jump into truly coaching the people he really want me to serve, I had to work on allow myself to be able to be more vulnerable,
mhm,
be really being more in tune with my love language.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that yeah, my love language is acts of service and quality time, but I had to learn how to give love to people in the way they receive love. So if you more of affirmations and touch, I have to then learn how to do that in that manner so you can receive the love the way I intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I just go about how I give love, receive love, you may not see it as that. And that was a lot of things that had like eye openers to me because when I was going through the process, because I spent time with my friends and stuff like that, and they come to find out they like, I didn't think you cared about me like that because you don't say nothing. I said, but I'm spending time with you. That's how I show love. But that's not how they show love, receive love. And so I had to learn how to be more saying I love you to people. And that was like the hardest thing for me ever to do because that's not my thing. But I learned to go ahead and do it because then I realized once it was time for me to be in the process of coaching these guys, I had to be able to express that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Iyan, say, I love you, brother. I have to be able to do that
Mm-hmm.
and come across that I really, really mean it. And so I had to go through the whole process myself first before I could do anything for them. And what I realized is that, you know, um, they do struggle. Even when they really come and pay that money to be coached in the beginning part of it, they still struggle with trying to be open to me
Mm-hmm.
until they feel like I'm safe. Once they feel like I'm truly safe, I'm not gonna judge them, anything like that, then it's like they just start telling everything. And then once I'll be like, okay, brother, I can tell when you're ready to cry, I'm safe. And
Mm-hmm.
then once they are able to cry in front of you and not be judged, you got them. You got them. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's crazy how it affects them. But then um and everybody finds a way to deal with differently without going through either a therapist or a life coach. Like this one guy, he struggled with that abandonment issue because of the father not being there. So what he said he has done is he intentionally chooses women to date that come from two-family household, two-parent household.
So
So
he can
then
have
there,
that.
so he could have that instant father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and that's a check for him. And I'm like, I said, that was a good idea. He said, I know that's what I struggle with. That's what I need. So therefore, one of my criteria is that it has to come from two-family household. And he has one right now, and it's working perfectly for him because now he has this father figure that he could talk to, he could find it to that he never had before. So how does the father not being in the female's life, how does that abandonment affects them um, in their relationships?
It can definitely affect it in many ways. Um, you've heard, the term women searching for fathers. It's kind of the same way sometimes,
Mhm,
but women also can be very self-sufficient to the point where they want a relationship, but it hurts so bad from that original injury, and I'll say trauma wound, that
mhm,
you become so bound by achievements and goals, right? Because I'll break it down. Black women are the most highly educated, right?
mhm,
um Highest entrepreneur gender, and everything else. Well, our race, and we're like really out here achieving, right?
mhm,
However, sometimes where we struggle is in the relationship zone,
mhm,
because I've become so self-sufficient, or the
mhm,
looks of self-sufficiency, and provide for myself, and very well, let's be very clear, very well,
mhm,
that even though I may want a relationship, now it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, in my mind, do I really need one? Or
mhm,
can I just have someone to associate with that's safe, right? Under the guise of having a relationship when it's really not.
mhm.
Or sometimes what can happen is there's a level of codependency. And codependency is this: I can't be without, I can't be by myself at all. Meaning, I'm in a relationship, the relationship is not working, it's highly dysfunctional, it is unhealthy, it could be abusive. And I will stay in that relationship until I get enough esteem, or put it like this, the abuse becomes so foreign because I'm not used to this abuse. I'm
Mhm.
used to this abuse. So all this was going on in a relationship, right? And I'm used to this, so I can deal with this. I've navigated this. Sometimes,
Mhm.
and I'll give you an example. Sometimes women in families pass on the knowledge and the tutelage of abusive relationships. What I
Mhm.
mean by that is, you have a great aunt that tells all her nieces and nephews, or all her nieces, you know what? That man love you. Even though he got like a family on one side and another family on another side, he paying these bills and that man love you. You better stay in that relationship.
Mhm.
Tutelage, stay in a relationship. So now this is just emotional, right? So I'm used to all kind of emotional and verbal, okay? Passing that on. The minute somebody hits me, because I'm not used to that form of abuse, that is what's making me question now. And now I got to get out of here. But with codependency, what it says is, I am not going to leave this person until I have the next one right there. So they go from one person to another person to another person to another person,
Mhm.
because they just cannot be by themselves and with themselves,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
then you have someone who might be a middle ground person, where they really want a relationship so bad, and they're trying to do the work, they're trying to do something different. They don't even understand why they keep getting the same type of guy.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's a man who is, you got to question everything. Like, do you really care about me? Different things like that. You get the emotional unavailable man.
Mhm.
You're constantly guessing, you're never sure, you're never solid. And it's just like, where's that come from? And you're like, huh. Now, these are the ones that kind of stick it out in between, but
Mhm.
they will cut it off after a while. And then they can have short periods of singleness, long periods of singleness, but they'll date casually. And then they wonder why they can never connect, because they're still dealing with the hurt from this. Well, I should say, all these relationships that mirror the original offender,
Mhm.
and then they're wondering why they're having a hard time connecting to a new person and truly putting all their feet in, because they're kind of runners, if you think about it.
Right. I agree. So, um, the new hot thing on social media, especially like, is the gender wars. You got all the different podcasts where the men is saying, that the women are too masculine. They're not, they're not willing to be submissive. You get the women saying that the guys are too feminine, or they're not able to take care of them financially. Where is this coming from? Because it wasn't like that before. It was like all of a sudden now it's just this new thing where we're at each other's throats and we nitpicking about everything each other is or is not doing.
Okay, so how real do you want me to be?
I want you to be real.
Okay, this is all about self-hate, right? And gotta have significance.
Hmm.
And I'll be very clear and say this: I don't see it in other communities. I only see it in Black community.
Absolutely.
And so it rips us apart, it tears us apart, and then it pits us against each other. So the divide of coming, where we could be coming together and really making some magical things happen. And I'll say it for this subset of our population, because this is not just everybody, because I don't watch them. And I'm
Right.
gonna be very truthful and transparent. I don't trust nobody who broadcasts from a car in the front seat of a car. I don't do it. And
Mm,
just because everybody gets a mic on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, and everything else, and they sound confident, does not mean they're credible, or should they really be listened to. So a lot of times we don't have the spirit of discernment either, because
mm,
we really just, when someone speaks to our insecurity, right? And not in
mm,
a way that kills it, but puffs it up and gives it meaning, gives it significance, and gives it esteem, we go, whoo, jump right in, right?
mm,
Whether we should or not, let's be very clear. Because there was a person who did this and had all them PlayStation players thinking that they were, and I'm not talking about the gamers that was played. I'm talking about the gamers that just laid on the couch all day and dropped their person off and came back on the couch. Had
Mm-hmm.
them thinking that they were up here assigning value to people
Mm-hmm.
when it shouldn't have been. It should have just been across the board. If you are not doing, if you can't provide a baseline for yourself, you likely need to sit down for a while, figure out what is going on in your life, what you want to do, and how you need to correct this, and then jump back out so that you can find a partner, because that's what a relationship is. It's really a partnership.
Right.
Be able to complement each other and work on future goals, not dump all your emotions and all your expectations and all your wounds onto somebody else and expect them to be able to wear a cape that they were never signed for.
I agree. I believe you hit it round the head. It is self-hate. Um, and it's unfortunate that it's predominantly us that's doing it. And if I'm honest, I feel like it's like our traumas is like cellular. So this goes all the way back to slavery days that we are not willing to try to fix and heal.
Yes.
And I think what we're going through right now, within these next 4 years, this should be the time that we start to really work on ourselves to heal as men and women, but also learn how to become better as a unit because we need to bring the family structure back
Mhm.
so the kids can understand what it is to have a mother and a father that's active. And, so then therefore they won't suffer through the same traumas and self-esteem that they've been going through from their parents. So, is what do you think needs to be done from your perspective?
Oh, that's a multifaceted approach.
Hmm.
But it first starts with me, the individual, right?
Hmm.
So I may know myself, or I think I know myself. Let's be very clear, right? But if I'm never doing self analysis, I don't have a trusted community that I feel will actually tell me the absolute corrective truth. And when I say corrective truth, not that truth that's going to, kill my soul truth. It's the truth of, I see so much in you and you've been out here playing. You're supposed to be doing something else. We have talked about this many times and, different things like that. You've been having this one big dream and you refuse to go after it. Not today. I want you to sit down. I need you to get it together because you have things to accomplish for yourself. That's that corrective love, right?
Okay.
And so being able to do that self-analysis, say, okay, where are my strengths? Where are my faults? And what am I don't want to deal with about me?
Right.
Right. And then am I making it somebody else's responsibility to carry this when it's not theirs? Am I harming somebody else? Because if I am, okay, how do I stop it? And then I got to get help,
Right.
whatever it is. Right. And so it starts with that. But then also, when you start going through this transformation process of really getting into you, a lot of times you kind of isolate a little bit, right? So
Hmm.
some people, the good time folks, they're gonna fall off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? The people who is only there but for what they could get out of you, they gonna leave and they're gonna be mad too. Okay.
Hmm.
So now you're gonna get lonely. You're gonna be alone. And then
Hmm.
the wall sometimes, you can have a 12 by 17 room, it's gonna feel like a 5 by 5 cell, right?
Hmm.
But that's okay because I always tell people you never know what kind of gemstone you're supposed to be. And a lot of people
Exactly.
always want a diamond or a ruby or something of that nature. But what they don't understand is a diamond comes from a lump of coal. And over a million years or however long, because of the pressure, the atmosphere and everything else it gets through, it then becomes the diamond.
Right.
So when you getting pressed out and everything else, and you feeling like your lungs about to collapse,
Right.
sit down for a minute, take the breath you can. Let's check the pressure, see what we can get off, or if somebody needs to help you, and then let's move it on. But then find people who are like minded because you have to be so intentional about yourself,
Hmm.
who you are, where you're supposed to be, and things like that, that you got to get like-minded people. Because if you have somebody else who's not like-minded, it becomes a distraction sometimes, and it can take you back,
Mhm.
which is a trick of the enemy,
Mhm.
or it can get you so sidetracked that now you want to get back on track. But here's the thing: people be like, "Man, I wasted so much time." So what?
Right.
Get back on it. Learn the lessons and let's go. Learn how to forgive yourself. Learn how to forgive others. Operate in forgiveness and grace and mercy for yourself and others. That did not say that everybody who hurt you in the past should still have access to you, because they should not. There are some people you can repair that relationship with. Other ones you need to tell them to go with God. He got better plans for you than I do.
Mhm.
And move on and constantly do a self check. One thing I do with my friends here is I have to ask them sometimes. We have like one-on-one conversations, and I'm like, how am I showing up as your friend? And be for real, transparent and truthful. Be for real. And sometimes I be like, I just like, good Lord, okay, I've been bad. And then other times I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I didn't even think I was doing that well. I felt like I could improve on this, right?
Mhm.
But get used to that. And then when you get with your partner, definitely get used to that.
Mhm. And so you said that because I remember Lisa Nichols came to Atlanta
Mhm,
and, and she spoke, and that was the assignment that she told everybody to do. Go to your friends
mhm,
and ask them to rate you as a friend from 1 to 10. Anything less than a 10, you push back and say, what do I need to do to go from 7 to a 10? And you can't get upset. You can't push back to what they say. So to be transparent to me, I was never the phone guy. I didn't like talking on the phone, anything like that. And all my friends knew that. However, when I said, when I did the assignment, it was like, um, they gave me a 7. They're like 3 of them gave me a 7. So I pushed back and I said, what did they do from go from 7 to a 10? They told me, be more intentional of calling us.
mhm,
And I was like, if I'm honest, I'm like, y'all know I talk on the phone. But I couldn't say that
mhm.
because then what I learned is how they felt didn't matter. So I had to like swallow my ego and be like, okay, and actually put forth the effort to call more often. And I was like, that is crazy. So my final question for you,
Mhm,
and which you kind of halfway answered it,
mhm.
would you be the therapist? Would you be the one that everybody comes and talk to and dump all of their emotions and traumas to?
Uh,
Who do you go to for your self help?
oh shoot. So I have a therapist too,
Or
but I talk to my tribe, my community here. And when I say here, I'm just talking about like wherever, because I have people back in Charlotte. I got people in Maryland. I got people here in Houston. Um, even there are times where I talk to certain family members. And then like my spiritual leaders between Charlotte and here, I mean, I got all their phone numbers, and I'll be like sending a message like, "Hey, you got a minute?" And they be like, "Can we talk at 3 o'clock today?" I'll be like, "Yep," because I got a question, or I need to talk about something, or whatever. And then when I go back to visit my Charlotte office, I have lunch and or dinner with all of them. But I make sure, because when I moved here, I was very intentional about the relationships that I formed, because I knew as a, what is this, a third time transplant, I knew I needed people, right? I couldn't do this alone. Texas is too big, but then also at this age, mm-mm. I'm not one of them no new friends people and everything else. I'm like, no, I can make new friends all the time. But here's the thing, here's my criteria for friendship. And I tell people, here's my criteria for friendship. First of all, do you think you can fit into this? Because if you can't, then we'll be great associates. And definitely I'll see you. And sometimes we can get together for coffee, but I'm going to be more intentional about this group. So yeah.
Right. Great. So before I end it, Do you have any words of inspiration or motivation for our viewers about going forward in 2025, be more intentional and working on their mental health?
Yes, I do. This has been a year and a half already, and we're just in March, right? In the middle of
Mhm,
March. Yesterday, if you read Julius Caesar, yesterday was the Ides of March, right? Et tu, Brute.
mhm,
Okay. So we can live in fear, right? Or we can push
mhm,
past the fear and get to what we want to do. There will always be something that's going to come up against you. Don't let it hold you back. Go forward, do the things. Even if it doesn't work out, at least you did it. You learned something and try something new. Don't ever be afraid to go after your dreams. If God has put a calling, an assignment, however you choose to say it, on your life, go get it. We've all going to be children of Israel. We don't always have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Maybe you're in your 40 years right now because you felt like maybe, Kevin, like you said, 20 something years ago, you felt like, maybe you should have been doing this, right? And now you're
mhm,
doing it, you're flourishing in it and things like that. That was our wilderness season. We had to figure it out. So now
mhm,
we can go. Now we can do it. Now we got people who support us and who will help us. So
mhm.
never give up on yourself. If you made a mistake, forgive yourself, repent if you have to, move forward, learn a lesson and move forward. But don't let, again, all this wackiness that's happening in the United States and everything else steal anything else from you. Because if that's the case, everything will be stolen and you will always be a victim. So
Well said. Well said. She has spoke some truth today. I'm grateful for you for being on my show. Don't go nowhere. I
okay.
got to talk to you off bar, but
Okay.
I want everybody to please like, subscribe, and share. And we might have to have her on again because she spoke some jewels today, so I might need to pick her brains on some more stuff. So
Please do.
thank you, and hold on one second.